Hi, I'm Lunis and I'm a musician from Brazil. On this video, I'm kind of building up on the last one that I did. On this specific video, I've decided to expand on what I was saying in the first one. The first one, I talked about how I started writing songs, how I usually start writing songs. And on this one, I'm gonna talk about some tips on how to spark your creativity, because it's not always so easy to write songs or do anything artistic when you want to. A lot of times it's really hard. It makes you frustrated, and sometimes it gets you to a point that you feel like giving up and asking yourself if you're really an artist or you just lost it. You just lost the capacity to do anything worth doing in relation to art. Anyway, I was kind of thinking about some of the things that I normally do, and I also did a little research, but just a quick one, just to see if I was missing something or forgetting something. Anyway, I'm gonna start with reading. The first tip is reading, because reading, I think, gets me the lyrics that I like the most after the ones that I really get to write by being vulnerable and connecting to my real feelings and the things that I really need to express. Those ones are always the better ones for me, because it connects intensely with myself, so naturally I like them the most. But really close to them are the ones that I get to write when I read something, especially fiction, and I connect to one or more characters, and I just pretend that I'm them, try to see the world through their eyes and write through their perspective. And the last one that I did that was like that was a song of mine called Child of Darkness that I wrote right after reading Blood and Gold by Anne Rice, and I was so moved by that story. If you don't know Anne Rice, she's the famous author that wrote a lot of vampire books. She called the Vampire Chronicles. She was the author of Interview with the Vampire, which is extremely famous, and I'm pretty sure you've already heard about it. Anyway, but this one was not about Lestat or Louis, it was about Marius, and I didn't really know much about him. No one who was reading the books knew that much about him until that book came along, because it was from his perspective, not Lestat's perspective or Louis' perspective. So I found it really shocking in a way, because I didn't see him that way. The story that he told was really heartbreaking, and it really got to me. I really connected to that song, and I really needed to write about that song because it was connecting to me in a way. I wasn't Marius, of course. I wasn't a vampire, or although I would really love to be, but something in that story really connected to me, so I needed to write about it. And I didn't know how I was going to go about it, but when I started writing it, it just came. It was not like on the first video that I said it was one of those songs that I just write and everything comes out of me, out of nowhere. No, it wasn't one of those songs, but it was really easy to write the lyrics. And that one was a song that I got to write the lyrics first, and then the song came about. No, it was not like that. Now I remember. I just remembered. I had a riff. I didn't have anything else. I didn't have the melodies. I don't think I had anything but the riff. And through the riff, I started kind of thinking about a song structure, and then I started like mumbling something. I think it was like that. So it wasn't the lyrics first, but I didn't have the whole melody by then. It was just some mumbles here and there. And then I wrote the song after I read the book, and when I came back to it, I was like, okay, I really like that proto song that I was writing, that I didn't know where it was gonna go, so I'm gonna try those lyrics on that song and see if it works, and it did. So I really enjoyed that. Lately I've read 1Q84 from Murakami, and I really enjoyed the book. I know some people hate the book, but I really enjoyed it. I really loved it, and it resonated with me, that story. So I'm definitely gonna try and write through that perspective, try to write some song. I don't know if it's gonna work, but I'm gonna try it. So reading is one of the things that are really working for me lately. So this is tip 1. Tip 2, which is related, is watching movies. It's the same thing. I'm not gonna go extremely into it because it's mostly the same thing. If I get inspired by a character or a story or both, I want to write from that perspective. Sometimes I do that with real people. Like if I see someone doing something that I feel that it's really inspiring, or if I know about something that someone did and I've connected with that, I try to write about it. It doesn't work every time, but I think it's good that I'm writing it, because if I do not write, that's one bonus tip too. You have to keep creating and writing, because writing is the form of expression that I'm using here. But any form of expression and creativity, if you're not doing it, then you won't be able to do more. Right? It sounds counterproductive, but it's not. It's kind of dull, and I kind of hate it when I'm really stuck and people just go, "Oh, just write it. Just go on your computer and write whatever comes into your mind." It doesn't work like that for me. So one thing that I do is go do something else that is creative, but it's not extremely related, or if it's better that it's not related at all. If it's not related at all to the thing that I'm doing, is even better. But sometimes it can be a little related to it, but it is enough for me to take my mind off of that stuff that I need to do and just go be creative somewhere else. And I think it unlocks it. I don't know what happens, but it kind of unlocks it. This was going to be one of the tips that I was gonna mention further into the video, but I already mentioned here, so that's it. So watching movies is kind of more like reading books. And about the books and the movies, the books I was talking about the fiction, but it can be books on art or something that just like a meditation book or a spiritual book. I don't know, something that gets you inspired. It can be any book. So it just needs to be something that gets you inspired to make something new. So another tip is collaborating with other artists, and it can be on the same thing that you're doing. Like me, a musician, it can be other musicians, but it doesn't need to be other musicians. It can be I'm a musician and I like want to collaborate with someone, some illustrator that I really like. So I'm gonna write my songs and say if I'm stuck, and I call that person, that illustrator, to talk a bit about what I enjoy about their work, that I wanted to collaborate and stuff like that. And maybe on that conversation and asking about how they come up with new ideas and stuff, I already am inspired, or I'm already gonna want to do something. Or maybe I'm just gonna grab my guitar and just start playing whatever, because I'm inspired on that exact moment. So collaborating with others are a really good way to spark creativity, especially on the conversations, because when I did collaborate with other musicians on my last project, I always feel inspired, because exchanging ideas with your fellow artists, to me, is really extremely exciting, and it makes me want to create more. So that's a really big tip. So another one is analyzing art. And I put analyzing art because I wanted to be general. But what I did, my experience is with music. I can say that I analyze some drawings when I'm trying to draw something. I pretty much analyze my references, but it's not like deep dive. When I go into music, I go all in. I want to know about the structure. I want to know what happens during the different parts of the songs, and I try to understand why the musician or the songwriter wrote it like that. Why is the things in the song where they are? What is the purpose? So I try to do that. It's kind of a philosophical study about the song, but I also go way deep into more theoretical analysis about the song. So I'm going to try to understand why they decided to use some of the instruments that they used and what are their purpose there in a theoretical way, like trying to make sense of it in a spiritual way, in a more analytical way in terms of music theory. And I do that just to understand how the greats go about it. But while I'm doing that, I feel like I get really inspired and I want to do my own thing. And it starts with a really good exercise is starting with trying to use some elements or elements of the things that you're analyzing in your next composition, in your next song, your next piece of art, whatever it is. You try to gather some of the things that you are analyzing that you just found out or you just learned, and you try to, not to imitate, but to use those things on your next piece. And that thing, just only that is enough for me to get a really good creative session out of me. I think at least 90% of one of my EPs called This Is a Dream from that tip alone. It was in the middle of the pandemic and you all know how it was. So for me not to go crazy, I did all quote unquote crazy things that would come to my head. And one of those was, let's start analyzing songs that I like. So because I have all the time in the world, so the time is now. So I started doing that and I decided that through that I was going to write a new EP. So most of the EP was through that. I analyzed specifically songs from the Smashing Pumpkins' Adore, and I took some of the things that I've learned from those analyses and put on a bunch of songs that I was writing at the time, and I've used the ones that connected to me the most, the ones that I enjoyed the most. I put it on the EP. There was a few more that I didn't really think it fit. Some of them I think it weren't good enough, but some of them I still like, and I'm still saving them for later because I think that I was onto something, but it was just not the time to release them. I did release them on a challenge that I was doing by that time because I wanted to write a song a month. So I needed to write 12 songs. So I was releasing the demos, but afterwards I just took them out of the web and just released the better ones on that EP. But I was using the analyzing art part tip. Anyway, another tip that is related is studying the greats and watching. I feel like watching documentaries about the lives of the great artists, and it doesn't have to be like I'm a musician, doesn't have to be a musician. I love Rembrandt, I love Van Gogh, Da Vinci. So those artists are not musicians, but they inspire me. So maybe watching documentaries for you about an artist that you like, it doesn't have to be on the same artistic endeavor as you, may open up a creativity for you. And not only documentaries, it can be interviews with them if they're still alive, or old interviews if they were alive by the time that TV was on, or books on them, or even tutorials on the internet. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be a great master that everyone knows. It can be someone on the internet that you really admire that does the same as you, or does something else but that you really enjoy watching. And sometimes just watching the way that they express themselves is enough for you to be inspired, because that's what matters, right? So another great tip, I think it's the greatest tip ever, at least for me, is just taking a shower. I seem to have the best ideas and the best inspiring thoughts while taking a shower. I always go, not always, but almost always go into the bathroom with my notebook and the pencil, or at least my phone, so I could just write the ideas that come to me. So I don't have to go too much into that because I know everyone knows that it's a classic. So another tip is trying new things without knowing how to do them. That's a really good one. I think about every time that I just started painting, for example, like I don't know what I'm doing, just get the paints and I start doing whatever it is. Or every time that I sat down on a piano and I just randomly played whatever, I don't know what I'm doing, just playing whatever. Or on another instrument that I don't know how to play. Like, at least you're having fun. If you don't get anything out of it, you're at least having fun and opening yourself up for creativity and inspiration. Even if you don't get anything out of it, like anything concrete out of it, at least you're getting fun out of it. So I always enjoy doing this. I should do this more, but I kind of forget because I'm always such a perfectionist. I always want to know how to do the stuff before I do the stuff. I'm like using that as an exercise more and more for myself because I really think it opens yourself up for new ideas and new thoughts. So go try to do things you don't know how to do. It is a really good exercise and it really can be inspiring. So another tip is taking a walk. It's a classic. Taking a walk or going on a drive aimlessly. You just get in a car and just drive wherever without a place in mind. And another tip that is related to that is changing locations or traveling. So I'm gonna put them all in the same tip. I think moving sometimes can be a great way for you to set your mind free. And moving to other locations is even better because you're watching new stuff, you're seeing new things, you're seeing new people, you're watching new scenes. And it can be very inspiring if you're really doing that as a creative exercise. So sometimes I like to travel. Here in Brazil, it's not really normal for us to travel by train because we don't have trains. And it's really a shame, but what can I do? But when I'm abroad, like when I went to Canada, I really enjoyed taking the train from Toronto to Montreal because it was a really long ride, but it was a nice ride. So I could just take my pen and paper and write stuff and have ideas. And I didn't try that, but next year I'm gonna go there again. So I'm gonna at least try to doodle something or just like do some drawing exercises maybe. I think it's a really nice way to be inspired. So another tip is journaling. But I gotta be honest, journaling never really worked for me as a way to inspiration. I usually journal to get stuff out of my head that I need space in my head, so I just need to jot it down, put it on paper so I can no longer think about those things. And maybe it's a first step so I can have my mind open for creative stuff. I don't know, maybe it's part of it, but directly it never worked for me like that. But I'm sharing this here because many people do that and say that it's like brain dumping and that it really helps them to get inspired, because at first you're really just brain dumping, then afterwards you get connected to your more creative self. I never really got that. For me, it never worked like that, but I've read many people saying that. I've heard many people talking about that. So it doesn't work for me, but it doesn't mean that it's not gonna work for you. So journaling is a very important tip. I'm halfway through the famous book, The Artist's Way, and journaling is a really important part of that book, what they call the morning pages. Like, it means that every day when you wake up, if not the first thing you do after you wake up is just getting your notebook and just brain dumping for like 4 pages, if I'm not mistaken, and then you're done and you go have your day. But that exercise is supposed to make you connect with the creative self. So I tried doing that, but after a while I'm gonna be honest here, I got a little bored And maybe it's a self-sabotaging thing, but I didn't really like doing that every day. I started to procrastinate and try to sabotage myself. So I just understood that that wasn't a thing that I was supposed to be doing at that time, that it was really making me more annoyed. So by the time I started doing voice journal, it was better for me. And the voice journals were really good. So maybe you could journal like me, just pick up your phone and just talk to it. I found out that I really am better just doing voice journal than like I'm doing right here, than just writing. I like writing, but not like that. So that's a tip, another classic one. So another one is doing another creative task that has not really to do with the one you're aiming for. So that one I already spoiled before on this video, is like doing something else when you're stuck in a song, you don't know where to go, you want to write a new song and you don't know where to go, you're stuck, so you go draw or paint something, or I don't know, cook something new that you never cooked before. Those things are real experiences in my life. That's why those were the examples that I've already done that. Or maybe like dancing. I just like put on a song that I really like and I started dancing, and after a while I was inspired. So maybe dancing is another tip. I don't know. Do something that is creative, but it has nothing to do with the stuff that you're doing. Like I said, the less is related to the stuff that you're doing, the better. At least it is in my experience. So another one that it really works for me is like sometimes I just pick up my guitar and just start playing anything that comes through my mind. And I did that recently, last week. I was like getting my guitar to record something that I had to record for one of the bands I'm producing. But before that, I was like testing the guitar, the cables and stuff. And when I was testing the effects, I just like started playing something, whatever, on the guitar, and I was like, I like that riff, and I started building on it and building on it and building on it, and it became a song. It was like, what? So sometimes that happens. A lot of times that happens when I'm least expecting it. That's what happened with Child of Darkness that I was talking about, writing the lyrics based on Anne Rice's Blood and Gold. It was like that. I was like getting my guitar to record something, and I was like testing the effects and stuff like that, and then a riff just came out of nowhere, and I was like, I like this riff, let's go. I'm talking about getting my guitar, but if you're a musician, get your instrument that you're more comfortable with. If you're a pianist, get on a piano. Even if you're a drummer, that is not a melodic instrument, but I think you can get a song out of, I know you can get new ideas from rhythmic stuff and patterns. But if you're not a musician, if you're another type of creative person, artist, you can just go like get a pencil and just start drawing whatever comes to mind, or get your paints and start painting whatever comes to mind, or get your camera and start shooting everything you're like watching. Or I did that once too. I just picked up my camera and just started recording stuff that I liked randomly. And I did that. Also did that challenge that you recorded a second from each day for the whole year. But 1 second wasn't enough for me. I wanted 1 minute. So I just had 365 minutes at the end of the year. So I had a lot of work to edit that, but it was really worth it because it really inspired me. And I'm really like, just remembering that, I'm really thinking of doing that again, maybe. Anyway, if I do, I'm definitely gonna share it here in the channel. So those were the tips to spark creativity that I could come up with, that I definitely already did, that I experienced myself. And I'm gonna go and recommend the book The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. I haven't finished the book yet, but because I really wanted to go with the book. She has some exercises, and I stopped in the middle, and I knew that I was self-sabotaging, so I just stopped the book because I wanted to do that seriously. So I stopped, not because the book was horrible. It is a very good book, but I knew I was self-sabotaging, and I didn't want to just continue reading the book without doing the exercises. That's why I stopped. But it is a really good book especially for someone that is struggling with new ways to creativity. And another one that I'm also still reading, but this one I'm reading right now. It's just because I didn't finish yet. But it's the Catching a Big Fish by David Lynch. David Lynch came to Rio, I don't know what the year was, a long time ago, but he came here to talk about that book. And of course, he talked about his movies and his processes and everything else. And I really enjoyed the conversation. And I always wanted to read that book, but it was in the back of my mind, but I never really remembered to get the book. So I finally did. I think it was a video that came in my timeline in YouTube, and it was him talking about meditation, transcendental meditation, and how the ideas came up to him and everything else. It was really enjoyable, the video. It reminded me of his book, and I went and got it, so I'm reading it now. If you like David Lynch, it's really interesting. I'm kind of in the middle of it, and it's really interesting to know how he thinks and everything. But it's also interesting for people who don't know him, just because he really gets into that spiritual side of creativity and how you can meditate and go find your creative self that is in every one of us. And that is something that I really, really, really believe. I think everyone is creative. I think we just need to unlock our creativity. But anyway, thanks for watching up to here. Thanks for sticking around. And please tell me in the comments some more tips. Give me tips, guys. Please. I need tips. Those were some of the tips that I have for you. But if you have more tips on how to spark creativity, I'm all ears. And if you're feeling generous, we have a Ko-Fi account here where you can donate if you want to. I'll be eternally grateful. The link it's in the description. If you want to follow me, listen to my music, everything is in the description. There's a link tree there where all my links to my songs and my latest music, and I'll be forever grateful too if you want to listen. And finally, if you liked this episode and what I said here, please leave a like because it makes the video go out to more people. As usual, I'll be forever grateful for anything you can do here, but especially subscribing if you like the content. And anyway, thank you and see you in the next video.